back in a second. I'll give him a second to get back. So I'll start my little preamble. It's June 15th, 2020, 7:30 p.m. Call this meeting of the Needham Design Review Board to order, coming to you from basements and spare bedrooms and walk-in closets across New England, evidently. So I'm Mark Lusing, the board chair. I'd like to confirm that all members and applicants expected on the agenda are present and can hear everyone. So members, when I call your name, please respond. Chad Riley.
Here.
Nelson Hammer.
Here.
Len Karen.
Here.
And we lost Bob momentarily. Bob Dermody is out, but he'll find his way back, I hope. And I'd like to introduce our new staff person, Rana. Rana is also here. So the applicants on the agenda, please respond with your name when I call out your application. McDonald's special permit application.
I'm back.
Okay.
I didn't hear that.
My internet just crashed.
Sorry, Leah
That's okay.
Rebecca from Hinkley and Holland here on behalf of McDonald's.
Okay. Is there anybody else with you, Leah?
Yes, I have Dan, who you've met below, and Sue as well from Spencer Technologies.
And Sue's last name, please.
Sue, would you spell your last name, please?
Medeiros, M-E-D-E-I-R-O-S.
Okay. William Ravis signage.
Yes.
Okay.
Brian Vassar with Archer Signs.
Okay. Beauty Muse signage.
Yep, Dana Thomas's Beauty News.
Dana. Hi, Dana.
Hi.
And the TripAdvisor fuel cell installation.
It's Walter Bonola with Doosan Fuel Cell.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to this open meeting of the Needham Design Review Board, which is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. We have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Needham Design Review Board is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, DRBB page, identifying how the public may join. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. DRB meetings typically do not allow public comment. However, on tonight's agenda, we have a special permit application which does require that we take public comment. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public wishing to ask questions or to comment should click on the raise hand button in the window in the Zoom application. When recognized, please state your name and address, then your question or comment. Comment time will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. There we go. And I'm the first one. Cause a problem. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may see you and that may take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. And that's important, please. If you shuffle papers and things, it takes over the microphone. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. All supporting materials have been provided members of this body and are available on the town's website. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. I would like to review the remote meeting procedures for tonight's meeting. I will introduce each applicant on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each to provide comment, questions, or motions. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. No, I think we'll know who you are. But finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. 3 copies after the review of your application, 3 copies of the application and relevant documents will be noted, stamped for the type of approval, which are approved, approved as noted, and not approved. Those are the 3 methods we have of reviewing applications. 2 copies will be mailed back to you, to the applicant, and 1 will be retained for the design review board files. I will ask you to confirm where the documents should be mailed when you're making your presentation. So we will now start with the first item on the agenda, McDonald's special permit application for digital menu board. So public notice is hereby given that McDonald's restaurant located at 340 Chestnut Street has made an application for a special permit pursuant to the sign bylaw section 5.3.4 and any other applicable sections of the bylaw. The application is for installation of a freestanding electronic menu board sign on the rear corner of the building. I will say that the applicant did come into the board, I believe it was February, and we did a sort of preliminary informal review with them to give them some feedback on what they were interested in doing. So I will turn it over to Leah Rubica.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Leah Rubega, and I'm an attorney with Hinckley Allen, located at 28 State Street in Boston. And I'm here tonight on behalf, as Mr. Chairman said, of McDonald's, requesting them to replace their existing board at their location at 340 Chestnut Street with a digital menu board. I know quite a lot has happened, to say the least, since the last time I met with some of you informally in February. And I do want to take the time to thank both the town and the board for willingness to hold this sort of remote meeting in this uncertain time, and continuing on so that we can proceed the best we can. Understanding, obviously, it'll be a bit of a learning curve for all of us as we go. Also with me here tonight, I have Sue Medeiros, the account manager for Spencer Technologies, and Dan Linnell, the senior project manager. Both Sue and Dan are with me here tonight to answer the more technical questions that any board member may have about the digital menu board. I'd also like to take this time to thank Dave Roche, Elisa Lichman, and Mr. Chairman for their time in this past 2 months. Obviously, there was a lot of uncertainty, and I really appreciate their guidance and their consistent checking in and letting us know kind of the process going forward. So that's greatly appreciated. Since it's been just about 2 to 3 months since the last time I met informally with the board to review our plans, I thought I'd give just a quick summary again of what we're requesting for the update to the digital menu board at McDonald's drive-thru on the property. As you may know, McDonald's is in the process of changing their menu boards nationwide at all of their locations to upgrade, be consistent with the technology for digital menu boards. This change is necessary because their existing menu boards at this point are nearing the end of their useful life, and replacement parts are really becoming outdated and obsolete at this point. The upgrade is consistent with the evolving nature of the technology, with energy efficient standards, and McDonald's overall desire to increase the efficiency of their drive-thru. Especially given the recent impacts of COVID-19, it's grown especially important for their drive-thru to be as efficient as possible, especially given the fact that customers are much more likely and inclined to stay in their cars, stay in the drive-thru lanes, as opposed to getting out and going into the restaurant. And if the board would have it, I'd like to share my screen so we can kind of walk through the property together. So. So can everyone see that? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the property. This is Chestnut Street, obviously, and this yellow solid line designates the drive-through. The ordering point and menu board is right here. As you carry on through the drive-through, there is a payment window and then a pickup window. So the proposed so this is as you enter the drive-through. As you can see, it has the overhang and the menu board is just located behind the building. As you get closer, you can see again the existing menu board and the order point here. That's just another. So the proposed digital menu boards are actually smaller in size than the existing menu board. The existing menu board is right around 42 square feet, whereas the digital menu board is much smaller at approximately 27 square feet. These digital menu boards don't include any flashing or moving images. There's no video-like effects, no flying cheeseburgers or anything like that. It really is a static menu board. And there's certainly not any sort of animated sign, which I know is prohibited under the sign bylaw. The only changes that do happen are in between, meal times between breakfast and lunch and dinner. The digital menu board feature is something that right now an employee to change over any menu, it has to go out physically into the drive-through and change over the menu, whereas the digital sign can be set at a specific time every day and automatically change over. So it eliminates that need for that employee to go out into the drive-through. In addition, the digital menu board, they use efficient LED technology. The existing menu board right now are fluorescent lights. The digital menu board also has a feature where the lumens are adjusted automatically based on the ambient light sensor. So it will dim in lighting, for instance, if it's a cloudy day or, late at night, as opposed to, how bright it will be at noon, say on a sunny day. Whereas the existing menu board, it stays one brightness regardless of whether it's noon or midnight. The digital menu board also does not require any sort of ballast or bulb replacement. And again, overall, just is an upgrade as far as energy efficiency. The other feature of these digital menu boards is once the customer has ordered, there is on the left side digital menu board, there is a small order screen that tracks the order being placed. And so the customer can confirm that the order is being taken correctly. And then upon confirming that their order is complete, the left screen changes over to order receipt, much larger and being clear to the customer, so the order can once again confirm that their order is correct. And again, in light of current times and the need to try to minimize any sort of contact or exchange between the employee and customers, this order confirmation feature really is crucial. It allows the customer to confirm not only once, but twice that their order is correct, which really adds to the efficiency of the drive-through. And again, it minimizes that contact as far as getting to the payment window and having an incorrect order or amount. And then also at the delivery window, limits the chance for mistakes and passing orders back and forth, or having to have the customer pull in a vacant space and have the employee come out to fix the order. So really, McDonald's upgrade to these digital menu boards is kind of two-pronged. One is obviously the energy efficiency of it, the environmental minimization of its impact, but also really trying to streamline the order and the drive-through efficiency and minimizing any issues or any mistakes. So if I can just... So obviously, like I had said, this is what is currently existing on the site today. And this is the proposed digital menu board at a different location. As you can see, much smaller, just 2 screens. And again, that's really towards McDonald's overall hope of streamlining the order process, really having the menu items be minimal, clear. You'll notice that the digital menu board is a little bit closer to the drive-through again, so that the customer can clearly see the order, and that the order, the figures, the wording is a lot crisper on the digital menu boards than the existing ones. This is also just for kind of relative comparison, similar to what is existing on the site. It's the 4-pronged menu board versus, again, the much smaller digital menu board. And as I had mentioned earlier, this is the initial confirmation order screen, so you can confirm exactly, if your order is correct. For instance, this is a coffee, whether it has the right cream, however many sugars, to really minimize any sort of mistakes and delay later on at either the payment window or the delivery window. And so these digital menu boards, we believe, are consistent with the sign bylaw. It really isn't a sign in the traditional sense. It's not meant to attract customers to come on site. It's really not even probably visible from it's actually not visible from Chestnut Street. And again, isn't large enough to attract or really for anyone other than the customer in the drive-through lane from seeing the images. It really is for the customer who has already entered the drive-through and can review the menu and place their order. And again, it does not include any sort of flashing, moving images. It's really a static menu board, with the exception of the order confirmation aspect there. Also, I think we had mentioned this at the initial meeting, McDonald's is the actual only restaurant with a drive-through service in town. So this is also something that if this was to be approved, it wouldn't kind of open the doors for, digital things like this to be everywhere. It would really be used just by this McDonald's. And again, isn't, going to open up, I don't believe, a door for digital signs popping up all over town. So with that, I would just like to wrap up. And again, thank you all for your time, and mention again, we're here before you to request a special permit to allow for the existing menu board to be replaced with the digital menu board, which we believe to be consistent with the sign bylaw. And really it has a number of positive impacts as far as reduced square footage, improved efficiency, reduced environmental impact, and overall increased efficiency in the drive-through. As I mentioned, Dan and Sue are here as well in case you have any, kind of specific technical questions. They will be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you want to clear the screen?
Oh, sure.
Okay, first I will open it up. If there's anyone viewing that has a question, make sure you hit the button to raise your hand, and Rana will let you in to speak your question or comment. So are there any? Steve, just wait a minute, please. I'm doing this is the public input portion. No, okay. All right, so I will go. As I said in the beginning, our usual way is sort of a free-ranging discussion, but it's hard to do that here where voices take over the microphone. So I will start with this one on just asking each board member to respond. And since Steve was already ready to go, I'll let Steve Tanner go ahead and ask any questions or comments. You need to turn your on mute there, Steve. Steve, you're muted.
Thank you. We've seen this a few months ago, and one of the things we talked about at that first presentation was that the old footing be completely removed. And I hadn't heard that mentioned in this proposal, and I would just like to bring that point up again. I yield back to you, Mark.
Okay. Leo, do you want to
Sure. So I did ask McDonald's about that point specifically, and they said typically it's the standard practice that they cap it. And I can share an image of that as well. But to remove the existing foundation, it would actually take quite extensive, construction work, jackhammering, getting the existing foundation out. And given that at this location, the existing menu board is actually located behind the building and isn't visible from any sort of streetways or anything like that, and given that the digital menu board would be located pretty much in front of it, it would be their preferred method to cap it the way that they typically do, as opposed to jackhammering and, fully removing the existing foundation. I can show a quick picture of that.
I think there was an image in our packet,
Okay.
probably page 17, maybe. There's a sign with a capped pier behind it, done in the middle.
Page 13, I think.
Okay.
And also just right
Okay.
here as well in the example, this is
Yeah,
what it
That's the one.
typically
that was
looks
okay.
like.
Okay, well, we'll keep that open for now. Any other questions, comments, Steve?
No, that's it.
Okay. Chad Riley?
Overall, this is consistent with what we saw the last time. I also seem to recall that we had some discussion about with what would be shown in terms of like advertising specials and things like that. I think there was a comfort level recognizing that there were standard menu items and that it was going to change a couple times a day with the different meal times. But I think there was one image right at the beginning that showed, some sort of a temporary sign put on top of the sign that was showing all kinds of, 2 for $5 specials or various other things. And I think that I recall some discussion about limiting the number of things, that there might be some seasonal offerings that are there. But could you talk about once this goes up digitally, there's really no control with what the content is other than what we might put down as a restriction in the approval. So could you perhaps just talk about what the intent is for the content beyond the typical menu and the order that you mentioned that flashes up when the order is completed?
Sure. So it is the intent to have, again, like I had mentioned, McDonald's overall goal with these digital menu boards is really to streamline the ordering process. So they're not trying to confuse the customer and having it different every time the customer comes through the drive-through. So it really will operate the same way the static menu board that exists there today, regarding if it, for instance, around St. Patty's Day, they go out and they put a slightly modified menu item of the Shamrock Shake. But again, that stays for however long the Shamrock Shake is in place. And again, based on their deals, like any menu board would function for a certain given time. If McDonald's is offering a 2 for $5 cheeseburger or bacon burger, that is part of their menu item. It's not a every day it's slightly different, or throughout the day depending on the time it's 2 for $5 at for this hour, and then it bumps off an hour later. It really is functioning similar as the menu functions now, in that it's a static menu. It will be updated occasionally based on offerings on the menu, in the same way that any other sort of menu specialty items are offered with, a paper menu, say. So again, it's not changing at any point throughout the day, except for between the menu items as far as breakfast and lunch and dinner, and then specialty items that again are a set time period.
Okay. Anything else,
And
Chad?
then just one other question is, I don't think we actually talked about what the finished materials are going to be for the cabinet. And we might have talked about it the last time you were in, but just kind of confirming. It looks like in a lot of the images that you were showing, it's kind of either a dark brown or a dark kind of bronze type finish for the supports and maybe more of, it looks like some of them are darker cabinets on the menu screen. So just could you talk about what the finishes are, and are they matching any of the finishes that are on the building, or is it a completely different set of finishes? I'm not saying it has to match, but it's just good to know kind of where the finish came from and how it fits in with the overall building.
Sure, and I'll actually pass that question to either Sue or Dan. Sue or Dan, any thoughts?
Yes, Sue Maderis from Spencer Technologies. I'm not 100% sure what the finishes are at this location, but the pictures that you see are typical cabinets where they're a dark brown, and the menus themselves are glass. So the brown is complete on the back. It's all brown on the back, and then the front has the glass finish with one partition under the glass. I'm not sure in this particular location what the color is of the building, though. Leah, are you aware of the color of the building?
Yes, I mean, this is one of the more updated models.
Yeah, I think the PDF
Yeah, it's-
in our packet, it's page 10, where you can see the drive-through. It shows some of the more gray siding and some lighter silver trim pieces. You said brown. Is it a painted brown, or is it like a kind of dark oiled metal finish? Or
Yeah, it's a dark metal finish. It's not painted.
Okay.
So it's an anodized metal material. Okay.
Okay. Those are my only two questions I can think of right now.
Okay, Len Karen, any questions?
No, I'm
Len?
okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, sorry about that. I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. And Nelson Hammer.
Yes, one question I have is the writing appeared to be fairly small on the board. You mentioned that the board was closer to the cars than the original one. How much closer is it, and how large are the letters in the menu?
I'm not sure exactly where it will be located. It will be, you know, I would say probably anywhere between 5 to 10 feet closer, because as you probably see in your packet, the existing menu board is smack dab behind the building. I'm not sure as far as lettering. Sue, would you happen to know the size of the lettering?
I don't know the size of the lettering. I do know that the new menu board is placed optimal 5 feet 9 inches from the order display or the canopy. And that's usually typically, I would say 2 to 3 or 4 feet closer to the drive-through than the existing. I don't have specs on how big the letters are, sorry.
Again, though, to that point, the technology is such that it really is a crisper image. So the intent is, again, to streamline kind of what the customer is seeing on the order screen in a way that's very clear, very orderly, as opposed to now the existing menu boards. Obviously, there's kind of a lot going on with the 4 panels, and it's just not as good of quality as, you know, the digital image that the digital menu boards are able to show with the lettering and the prices.
Okay, one other question. The in-restaurant menu changes because it doesn't have room for all of the items on the menu. Is the digital menu board outside, does it have everything on it that can be purchased at that time?
No, sorry. I mean, I guess what you're asking is, I mean, essentially it does not, the drive-through menu board has a streamlined version, so it does not. But at the same time, it's not rotating to go through all of the menu items that it has. Again, the drive-through menu board is really just kind of a limited display aimed at trying to get the customer to review, to order, and to move on. So it does not.
Thank you.
Well, as we've talked about this earlier, Nelson, whether it does or not, what we're going to ask them to do is simply put up one image for each time of the day. What we talked about using as a restriction is that you get one image 3 times a day. I'm looking at an example that has a little 2 for $5 deal, but it doesn't change every 5 minutes or every 15 minutes. It's simply
Yeah, that
there for lunch. This is our special today, and they've been amenable to doing it that way, so that's helpful to us. I guess my other question there, Leah, is when the image for your entire menu order does show up and take over, about how long does that displayed? Do you know?
I'm not sure exactly, but the way it's supposed to work is as the customer's ordering, it shows up in that bottom quarter.
Yeah.
Once the customer has said, the employee says, will that complete your order? The customer confirms, the full screen rolls up so you can see it clearly. And it lasts a mere few seconds, essentially until the car starts to roll forward, and then the menu returns to its original image for the next passenger. So really it's meant just while the passenger is right in front of the menu board.
Okay. The other thing, Nelson, I did look at the site plan. From where the speaker box is, it's 11 feet to the menu sign.
Okay.
Well, I'm assuming they've worked out that works or doesn't work visually. It's not really for us to tell them it should be closer or bigger.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
No.
Any restrictions that you think any of you think we should be doing? At this point, I have where the panels are allowed to change 3 menus a day, lunch and dinner. I won't restrict the time, but that's it has 2 changes per day before the next day starts as a restriction. We want them to cap the existing footing with a material similar material to the sign material, not just a painted box or something, but an anodized metal that matches the sign. Any others?
The sign should only be lit when the kitchen's open for business and taking orders.
That's good. All right. Anything else?
Can I go, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that good. Thanks, Chad. That was one of my questions. The hours the sign would be on. So let's make sure that that's clear. And then also, I haven't heard anything about this, but I think we should be clear that no clip-on attaching or a plastic thing that is non-digital that could get attached.
Okay.
I know it wasn't in the presentation or I didn't see it, but I want to make sure that we're clear. At least I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I feel that the signboard is what it is. And thank you for the presentation. That was very clear, but I want to make sure that, we don't drive by there sometime and there's a plastic cutout taped to the top of it with duct tape.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. So I would accept a motion to approve the special permit for McDonald's menu board, given these 4 restrictions. It's restricted to a single image that doesn't change during the day, except for 2 changes for the time of day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 different menus, but otherwise the menu doesn't change except to display the order. That we cap the existing footing with a material similar to the cabinet. That the sign is on only when the kitchen is open and taking orders. And that no additional attachments to the sign will be allowed, such as a special cardboard or any other sort of sign panel that might be temporarily attached. So is that a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
So
Seconded.
moved.
So Bob moved and Chad second. Okay, Ronna? Okay, I'm going to go through the roll, please. Say yes or no. Robert Dermody,
Yes.
Chad Riley,
Yes.
Nelson Hammer,
Yes.
Steve Tanner,
Yes.
Len Karen,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So thank you, Leo.
Thank you all very much again. Really appreciate the time and the effort in these very unprecedented times. So we appreciate your time.
Well, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Leah. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the William Ravis signage. Are you back, Brian? There you are.
I am.
So go ahead, I'll turn it over.
Okay, all right. So there's an existing pole that there was a pylon sign out in the front of their location, and the pole still exists. There was, I spoke with the building department, and they gave me the size of that sign, and we stayed within the confines of that old existing sign in this design. So
Actually, I want to see the size.
I'm going to ask you all to mute yourselves until he's done talking, please.
Basically, we're just going to put a cladding over the existing pole with a small base and an internally illuminated sign with internal solar components where there'd be flat solar panels on the top, and all of the other components of the solar array, the battery and the other electronics needed would be inside the sign. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward. We're just utilizing the existing structure. Mark, you're still muted.
So I'll go through the members again. I'll reverse the order this time. Len Karen?
No questions.
Okay. Steve Tanner? You're muted, Steve.
No questions.
Nelson Hammer?
No questions for me either.
Chad Riley?
We never actually stated the location. I think I've kind of deduced it there, but it's on Garden Street, kind of right on the corner of May Street, right?
May and Garden, yes. 168 Garden Street, sorry. It's corner of May and Garden.
And I also see that there's no dimension to the bottom of the sign, and I think, or a site plan. So I think, I know it's an existing pole, but I just don't recall off the top of my head if it's close enough to the intersection where we need to be mindful of minimum dimension to the underside of the cabinet, just so it's not creating any kind of traffic obstruction of the driver's view.
Right now, it's about 11 feet to the top, and the cabinet is roughly 3 feet. So it's 8 feet to the bottom. That's quite a distance. Shouldn't and basically there's a plate on top of the pole now, and the new sign, the old sign sat on top of that plate, and it was the same size. So this one's sitting on top of the same plate. So the base, the distance from ground to bottom of sign is going to be the same as it was. It has to be, because there's a plate on the top of the pole that we're going to utilize.
Yeah, the reason we asked, Brian, is because sometimes these signs are put up so long ago that they weren't reviewed and they might not meet the standards. So that's why we
I
wanted
see.
to talk about it.
I got you.
Okay.
Typically 7 feet to the underside, I think, right?
It's the limit. Yeah, the minimum is 7 feet. So you're in good shape there. The building, just for your own information, the building department may want a site plan that shows the exact location so that they can verify the setback from the property line requirement. But you can speak with them when you ask them about it.
Sure.
I just want to confirm it's an entirely new cabinet on top, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
I think they've got, so it's 2 streets, so they've got to write to 2 signs. There's one on the building and the pylon is a second. Is that how we're seeing it?
That's how we're looking at it.
Yeah. All right. No other questions.
All right, I would accept a motion to approve.
Mark, can I go?
Did I miss you? I'm sorry.
Yep. No worries. Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm sorry if I didn't hear this. Is the William Ravis lettering on both sides?
It is. It's a double-sided sign. Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that count as 1 or 2 signs, Mark?
It's a single sign in that situation. It's a particular type of sign that is double-sided.
And then I didn't see in the packet a plan, which Mark just referenced to, one for location of the post, which I know exists, but also to the orientation of the plane of the sign relative to the, I guess, sidewalks or streets maybe. Has there been any thought to that? It's photoshopped, but it's not super clear as to actually which way. Would it be parallel to Garden Street, more or less?
It looks like to me it's on an angle, a bit of a diagonal facing the intersection, more of a diagonal, but the plate on the top is fixed. It's a square plate, so we're using the same hole pattern that's there.
Oh, okay.
So we're kind of like, we're following what was there before based on that base plate.
Okay, then I don't seem to have an issue with what used to be there, so I think that should be fine. And the color, also a compliment on the sign. It's very clear. I like it.
Thank you.
Well, we get lots of signs in here that have addresses, websites, diagrams, donuts, everything. So
yeah,
that's good to see. And is that the white post, is that going to be a paint material or a cladding?
It's going to be all aluminum. It'll be painted with an automotive finish.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes we do a textured finish on those, but this doesn't really lend itself to a textured feel. So this will be smooth.
Okay.
Architecturally speaking, you wouldn't really see a pole that thin textured, so
yeah,
it'll be a smooth finish.
All right. Thank you. No further questions, Mark.
Okay. So I would take a motion to approve the application for 168 Garden Street pole-mounted sign for William Ravis with as submitted.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Again, we have to vote in order. Robert Dermody,
Approve.
Chad Riley,
Approved.
Nelson Hammer,
Approved.
Steve Tanner,
Approved.
Len Karen,
Approved.
and the chair approves as well. All right.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks,
Okay,
Brian.
thank you very much. Let me see if I can figure out how to.
So Brian,
Thanks, Brian. You did great.
could you confirm where we should mail your approved information?
Sure, it's the 316 Boston Post Road address.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item is Beauty Muse signage. Dana, would you like to go ahead and, again, everyone has a packet of information if you want to look at it, or she can review what you want to do, please.
Sure. Thank you guys so much for meeting. It's certainly an interesting time to open up a luxury beauty retail business. So looking forward to hopefully getting a sign. But we're just looking to put just one sign on the outside of the building. I believe from the dimensions I was given, it's the same. It's approximately the same dimensions as the sign that was previously there. And I don't know if you have any questions.
Can you remind me of the address quickly, please?
Sure, it's 117 Chapel Street.
And which block is that? Just
That's next to Citizens Bank, Bob,
oh, thank you. Yep,
Right between there and Bagel's Best.
between
Yep.
Bagel's Best and the bank.
got it.
Was the,
I'm just going to Google Earth like I do in the real meetings.
all right, so the sign is solid PVC pin-mounted letters. I'm looking for the color.
White.
White lettering, okay, here we go. The upper sign is, the name of the business is 7.2 inches, and the lower case letters beneath skin, body, soul are 7.5, roughly 7.3 inches, but that's from the top of the upper to the bottom of the stripe on the side. So I think the main body of those letters is probably about 3 or 4 inches. And they have a mounting detail. They're just going to pin mount it, which we've seen in other installations. And a 1/2 inch spacing off the wall. All right, so I will start with questions. Bob Dermody.
Oh, you're going to make me go first. Yeah, is the awning existing to remain?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the square footage? And I'm sorry if it's in the package. I didn't see it yet.
The square footage of the space or the
sign,
front of the building?
Just the sign.
It's about 12 square feet, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Thank you, Mark.
12.3.
Right. I'm just the beauty person, not the sign
No.
person. But
Well,
if
it's a beautiful sign. No
Right.
worries.
Thank you. If there's anything that's not in there, I'd be happy to find the answer out.
I don't think I've ever said this at the design review board, but is it big enough? It does sound like very small letters to me. I don't know what my colleagues think.
Well, that's
I know.
again, that's a slow traffic area.
Yeah.
But 7 inches is a small letter. I do think that when Middlesex Bank did their first sign application, they had 8-inch letters, and about 3 years later, they did come back, and we all agreed that they were probably too small for that section of road.
I'm especially referring to the ski and body soles at the bottom. Those seem particularly small. And again, we only have what we have digitally. I'm just concerned that they might get lost. And then would ask the question, are those needed, as we do in other applicants? So those are my concerns right now. Otherwise, I think the organization of it and the lettering and that all seems reasonable. It fits. And I was just trying to look up on Google Earth to see what's on either side of it as well. Sometimes that informs our discussion of businesses, right next door. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not.
I do have so that building is 119/117. So I do have a neighbor that shares the same facade as I do.
Yep. Okay. I was just going to look at that. So
I think
I'll just throw that out there from
proportion to the, I'm just remembering, I didn't choose the size of the lettering, but I remember them saying they wanted to keep it dimensionally proportionate to what was at 119.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. That's good. So I'll just throw that question out for my colleagues. Otherwise, I have no issues. I think it looks good.
Okay.
I think the sizing looks proportionate relative to the space and the neighbors. It looks fine to me.
Okay, I'll just kind of throw it open if people want to comment here. Nelson or Steve or Chad.
No, I agree that I think it looks fine.
Do we have any issues with skin, body, soul? We have we frown on excessive extra information on these signs. It's really to identify you, but when it's the case where you wouldn't know necessarily what it is without some help, we tend to look at it. My example is always Polywogs around the corner.
Mhm.
There's children's clothing. I mean, who knows what that would be if you
That's
just.
why we actually added that piece to that before I had this store was not there. And I didn't want people to wonder what on earth it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I would, on overall, I think it looks fine. I wouldn't object if the letters were slightly larger. And then I think the only other thing is, right now, just looking at the picture in the packet, the windows are all pretty blank. So I just want to remind the applicant that you're allowed to have things, smaller decals that are less than 2 square feet. But if you end up putting other imagery or signage or things in the window, that is also subject to the design review board. It looks like there are some existing lights. I'm not sure if the building overall has them on a timer, but there are also restrictions about when the lights can be on, when businesses are open and things like that. So just kind of a reminder about assuming that the existing lights will continue to be used. But otherwise, don't have any objections to it.
Is that something that I should ask my landlord? Because I actually don't have a switch to those lights that I know of internally, because we just gutted it.
Yeah, I would talk with them, and they're aware of this Heffernan's. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're aware of this regulation, but they may need to help you make sure that happens. But
Okay.
basically, they can be on till 11 o'clock. Unless you're still open. So you can, anytime you're open, they can be on, but otherwise it's limited to 11 p.m. And we're seeing most of the newer signs have been able to get that done. So that's one of the limits. Yeah, I guess, I am, given the concern about the size that we've given you, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I mean, we don't necessarily want giant signs. But I think I would suggest that we might approve this up to, 10 inches high, if that's the board's amenable to that. And then you
sounds
can
like a good way to go, Mark.
You can just do what you want. But we would, if you want to take another look at it with the sign person, check
That's helpful. Thank you.
Check what Bagels Best has and the Citizens Bank, because I think those are all around 12 inches.
Okay.
And you could go a little bigger.
And I have one more
the
comment.
sign manufacturer could.
Go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say the sign manufacturer can probably print something out in paper too, and just put it up there for you to look at the different sizes and see what you want to do before you pay for letters that you then might later find out aren't quite the right size for the building.
Thank
you. Yeah, do a mock-up. That would be great. Okay.
Mark, I have one more comment.
Yep.
Not to beat this too much, but the skin, body, soul, with the way those letters are spaced and the spaces between the dots between it all looks like one long. I find that hard to read. And again, I do agree that I'm looking at it on a laptop of a PDF, so that's not the real thing. But maybe that's just a question you ask your sign designer as you review the size of the Beauty Muse letters. Is there just a little spacing between the words? A little more, keeping the dot, because every space seems equal there, and I find that hard to read. Thank you. No further questions or comments.
Steve, could you talk about that for a second? Do you think this?
I agree with Bob on that point.
That you might.
It's certainly hard to read, and the letters on the top, I think that the thin strokes are way too thin to really show up. So it should be slightly bigger, or the font should be changed a little.
Okay.
Is it possible from the mock-up that they provided so the PDF mock-up that says Beauty Muse sign front side mock-up page 1, they just took my logo file that I gave them, but I doubt that they could manufacture it that thin. I would assume that the actual letters would have to be slightly thicker. than the
They
foam.
could be manufactured that thin.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
But
well,
I think
I'd be
what we're-
impressed, I guess, if they could.
But I think what we're saying is maybe that thin isn't so good. Maybe that looks great on stationery or letterhead if you use that anymore. But or on a on a website that might look good, but on a building front that is very, very thin. I'm gonna plug in a light here. I'm getting dark.
again, I think we'll give these as options to you that, you know, we will, so we'll modify our approval. If there are any other comments or questions, I'm gonna make a motion with some items in it. Everybody ready?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So I would say we will approve this as noted, which would be the Beauty Muse lettering could be a maximum height of 10 inches. You could increase the letter stroke slightly for more visibility, and that the skin words, that the letters of each word be slightly closer together. And then you can decide how to space them between the dots. Because they do sit underneath the Beauty Muse part. But so with those conditions, I would move that we approve it with those conditions.
I will make that motion.
Okay,
I
I
second.
would second.
okay. So I will vote, please. I will go through the vote. Len Karen,
In favor.
Steve Tanner,
In favor.
Nelson Hammer,
In favor.
Chad Riley,
In favor.
Robert Dermody,
In favor as well.
and the chair will vote in favor as noted.
Thank you.
All right, so we, again, kind of confirm with you where we should send the information.
Yeah,
Hawthorne
53 Hawthorne.
Okay,
Good luck, Dana.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
all right, next. And the next and final item for the evening is TripAdvisor fuel cell installation. And we have, where did he go? Walter Bonola. Did I pronounce that correctly? Would you like to go ahead? I'll turn it over to you, Walter.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the board and especially Alyssa Lichtman for her help in getting us on the agenda tonight. We truly appreciate it. So we are proposing an installation of a single 460 kilowatt hydrogen fuel cell power plant on structural steel spanning the loading dock area at the TripAdvisor building at 400 First Avenue in Needham. We've exhausted our ground level options, and thus the utilization of the structural steel platform. So TripAdvisor will utilize all of the electricity that we produce with our fuel cell, and will utilize a large percentage of the hot water that we can supply them. They'll utilize that in their to preheat their boilers, on their in their 6th floor penthouse. The fuel cell will be screened with a louver that will be color matched to the building envelope on 2 sides, and it'll be open to the terraced area at the building. And then our major components would be the fuel cell and a cooling module. The cooling module will be placed on the ground on concrete foundations, and it will be screened with a similar material to what is directly adjacent to it. So there's an emergency generator on the ground, and we'll be directly adjacent to the fuel tank on that generator with our cooling module, and we'll simply continue the fence of same material, same finishes, roughly 15 or 16 feet further out, and then return it to the building. So, Jim, you have anything to offer? We don't hear you. Still muted. Nothing yet.
So Jim, we weren't able to hear anything from you.
Hi guys, my name is Matt Meyerhofer. I popped my hand in, raised my hand, and I think somebody may have unmuted me. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Matt.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, so my name is Matthew Meyerhofer. I'm with TripAdvisor, and I'm our infrastructure and sustainability engineer. I think I've met a few of you gentlemen in past years in proposals for some buildage signage for the office of the year. But regarding the fuel cell, just a couple other points. In terms of the condo association that's managed by Columbia Realty there, or formerly Normandy, we have worked with them as well as the current landlord for US Realty and received formal or written approval from both parties regarding the install locations or the acceptance on their level. So from a property owner and condo owner association, we've received those approvals, which is great. And just some quick numbers for you guys. This will produce approximately 60 to 65% of our electricity that we would use, which is pretty awesome. It's designed around our baseline electrical usage, which is, that Saturday evening when nothing's really running, or your main operations aren't running. But keep in mind that we have the data center in our building. We have about a 5,000 square foot data center. So this fuel cell will basically negate the operations of our data center, which is a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365-day a year operating unit. The other benefit that Walter was mentioning earlier would be the heat that the fuel cell rejects that we are going to be able to extract via just a pumping system. So we are going to pump hot water up into our penthouse and inject it into our boiler return loop. So basically we're going to heat the water as it re-enters the boiler, telling the boiler that it doesn't need to produce heating. It's designed and expected to handle about 95% of our overall heating load, 90 to 95% depending on how cold it actually gets. But based on our past data, it should be able to offset our gas usage for the boilers. Granted, there will be an increase in gas as this thing runs off of natural gas. But again, we'll count for about 60 to 65% of our usage, our kilowatt hours, about 90 to 95% of our gas use associated with boiler heating. So yeah, just wanted to share some other data that I thought would be useful.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, that was one of the questions with the ground-mounted equipment that is shown on the plot plan. I was curious about that. About how tall is the fence, the screen that goes there? I don't remember the other one exactly, but I know I've seen it.
It's at least 8 feet, probably higher.
So it's fairly high. And I'm glad that you spoke to the issue of the adjacent property, because there aren't large setbacks in that neighborhood that I'm aware of, and you're sitting right on, a foot or so from the property line, and our question would be, what happens when the next neighbor builds and you have to move those or whatever, but you've gotten that worked out. So that's, I appreciate that. So I will open it up to questions from the board. Len, you want to start?
No questions.
Okay. Steve?
I'm all set, thank you.
Nelson?
No questions.
Chad?
A couple. One is that there were some images from looks like Google Earth Street View, and I couldn't tell if this were just images of the building or if that was intended to be some kind of a Photoshop representing what it's going to look like. Could you clarify that?
Sure. So I'm looking at the document that's listed as presentation1.pdf. Is that the document that you're referring to?
Here, I'll just pull mine up and make it. So
yeah, that's what we have. Yep. So for
so
everyone else, if you're
or?
Yeah. So that is the loading dock area viewed from just north of the driveway to the Coca-Cola plant next door.
I guess the question, Walter, this is an existing conditions picture, not an image of what would be done.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's a street view of what's there.
Yeah. And so this also similarly is existing conditions.
That's correct. Yes.
And that's the screen that will continue on to the right.
That's right.
Sorry, I'll go back to that one. Yeah. So we're saying it's going to be installed here, and that the trees and the screening are going to continue out this way. Is that what we're saying?
Let me get a little up close and personal with this one. Bear with me, please.
Yeah.
So imagine that plane of the fence where the 4 arborvitae are arranged. Imagine that plane extending further down the building some 14 to 16 feet, and then returning to the building. So all we would be doing is extending that long plane of the fence in order to hide the cooling module and the nitrogen purge bottles.
So here, I can see this is labeled new fence. And so does the existing fence kind of stop somewhere around here, or is that fence back in this area? It's I guess, usually as the design review board, we're interested in facade changes and the appearance, and it's just a little hard to tell from the materials that were provided what it's actually going to look like.
Right. So, well, I mean, the overall appearance won't change significantly. There'll just be more fence along the long axis of the fence line here. So from the point where you see
a little bit better if there was a diagram that really kind of showed the line of the existing fence dashed in and very clearly showed where the new fence was going to be, and showed existing plantings and new plantings that were going to be installed, if it's arborvitae or other things, then it's a little more clear on what we're being asked to approve. I mean, right now it's really an equipment plan that's going to be located on the ground, and it sounds like you're going to save a lot of energy. I'm not sure if it's mainly, because of the bill or because it's more specifically because it's a sustainable measure. But I guess is it part of a sustainable agenda, or is it purely, a financial cost savings, or what's the kind of driver behind the equipment? If you could just expand on that a little bit.
Walter, I'm happy to jump in on that. Just checking if you guys can still hear me.
This is Matthew?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Yeah. So this is Matthew Meyerhofer. Yeah. So the intention, honestly, it was 2 years of work and trying to find a solution in the sustainable world that would, allow TripAdvisor to kind of hang its hat on something. So when I started about 4 years ago with TripAdvisor, about 2 years ago was tasked with, just reviewing our daily operations and building and creating a sustainable plan. So after looking at the concepts of solar on the roof and the cost and payback in comparison to combined heat and power units, which are similar to a fuel cell but operate a little differently, to wind turbines, to everything, this product came out with the overall greatest bang for the dollar. So when we look at the footprint that it would take to produce this amount of power for a fuel cell, you're talking, what, a 25-foot by 15-foot platform elevated, versus to get a 460 kilowatts of solar, we would need to take up half of the industry or the industrial park that's over there, the office park that's over there. So we looked at all sorts of solutions. We had a full RFP process run with 4 vendors. And so one, primarily looking at offsetting the data center electrical usage and being able to negate that kilowatt hour and that demand. 2, it's a financial capital project that has a 3-year payback with 10 years remaining on the lease. So I would be lying if I didn't say that this was, primarily a financially driven capital investment. But the byproduct of the energy is phenomenal for what we're doing and for the amount of energy we use, the TripAdvisor. Yeah.
Well, I think the sustainable message is definitely the right starting place, and something that in my mind is very supportable. So I think kind of where I'm coming out is, I'm sure that there's a long lead item on the equipment, and I obviously will go through some more comments and questions, but I'm coming out at a point where I could support the general installation, but maybe request that they come back with a planting and landscaping plan that just a little bit more clearly delineates how the screening and the fencing and those things are going to be extended, so that we don't hold up the implementation of the equipment, and we can get the shop drawings and submittals that, you can get those going. But we still just have a little bit more closure on what the visual impact is going to be and how the screening takes place.
Sure, and we can supply you with that, absolutely.
Okay. Can we clear the screen shares?
Yep, sure, sorry.
No, that's fine. That was very helpful. So I think what we'll do is the conditions would be that it's approved for the installation, but that we want a final review. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, and with your permission, can I try the screen share feature?
Sure.
I've got an image here. I got into Google Earth Street View, and from B Street, looking right at that loading dock area, there's a pretty clear image. So please let me know if you can all see it now.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I'm interpreting these plans correctly, because
it's pretty ugly.
36, it had the site plan, showed the buildings and a lot of information, and I saw 2 new fuel cells. One was new and one was proposed. One was in black and one was striped in red lines. And is there something going in this area, if you can see my cursor, where the 2 garage doors are?
Yes. So, okay. So the area above the loading dock is the proposed area. The original proposed area was on the ground, where you see that delineated in red. But negotiations with the adjacent property owner.
So right here.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
Right. So our platform will span the loading dock. It'll be finished in the same color as the building envelope, and we'll use a louvered material to screen the equipment and allow for the necessary air circulation
Okay.
on that side of the machine.
So picking up from Chad's comment, I would suggest that you include an image just like this, right, and you can steal it right from, like I did from Google Street View, because
Sure.
I think that will be really helpful for us to understand. And then the other issue, a lot going on at this end of the building, and I would be concerned about adding another large piece of equipment here so close to the street. And then the other questions about, up behind. So up in this area behind this white piece of equipment would be that other piece of new equipment. And
Right.
is this the fence? Okay.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
So, maybe a plan that's not so mechanically oriented, but more the landscape, the location, what the plantings are, the fence material, color, size, shape, installation, that kind of thing would be very helpful.
Sure, sure.
Thanks. I will stop my screen share.
They do have a sheet in their package, Bob, of that structure and the way it sits above the garage doors.
Yeah, it's. I'd love to see it in situ, in place. That's a very mechanical drawing. It's, it's more of a structural drawing. So thanks.
Any other comments from the board? Well, I'm hesitant to have these kinds of questions about the visual nature of the screen and what's going on here. So I'm inclined to continue you to our next meeting, just so that you can get some samples of the screen, develop a landscape plan. There's no indication here that there's any intent to put any landscaping along that fence. And that's fine if you don't, but we kind of need to know that. So we're meeting again, Ron, I believe in 2 weeks. So that, let me check the schedule. So I don't think that'll hold you up too much on this enterprise. One second, sorry. Well, that's not true, necessarily. All right, give me 1 second to find that schedule.
Yes, our next meeting, it's technically not in 2 weeks, it's July 20th.
Right. I think I don't want to speak for the rest of the board. I think if we knew these questions, I don't think we'd object. There was a lot going on there, but when we reviewed this original design, we knew that was kind of a back service corner for the building owner, and there was just not a lot of site. It was a way to use the site given the neighbor that Coca-Cola is across the street at the time, and that it's sort of more of an industrial part of that neighborhood. So we were accepting, but again, the images show just very transformers, the electric generator, the tank. You've got items now that are as big as the tank and the generator. Plus, we want to throw another one up in the air, and start to really they did a nice architecturally treated that loading dock in a nice way with metal panels and nice doors. It wasn't, it wasn't treated like some unfinished service area. So this is a little bit more rough, a little more structural, and so we would like to have a little bit more of an indication of the screening, even if it's just a product cut or something. But be curious what the rest of the board wants. If anybody is willing to take that information secondarily, that's fine.
I think I may,
You wouldn't.
Mr. Chair, I think I may have committed a mistake on the date of the next meeting. I apologize.
Okay.
Elisa, would you like to?
Yeah, I was just double checking the website, and Mark, you had given me July 6th as one of the July dates.
Okay.
I know it's around July 4th, but I don't know how that's going to affect everyone's.
Okay, so yeah, our next, so it's 3 weeks, roughly.
And Walt, hi guys, this is Matt Mayer Hoffer. I don't know if it will be helpful, Walter, if you have access to the design drawing plan, there is a nice 3D, like an isometric that would give you, it's not a screenshot like a Google Earth from the road, but in terms of seeing the loading dock, the actual steel, it's a AutoCAD 3D version of it in there. And then, yeah, I don't believe we have anything that would show any, continued fence line an aspect that way, but I don't know if that would help everybody maybe push along on a conditional if we have access to that isometric. See if that plan would provide any further detail or visual.
I'm pulling those up now, Matthew.
Is the isometric of which you speak in the package that we received? Do we know?
No.
Okay.
And I think the overall intention in terms of, just any additional landscaping, and I know we can produce the visual for you, up along the side would be just a continuation of that wood, the wood fence. We wouldn't do any further landscaping because the parcel that would be able to be built there, the next building, would basically come up to a similar edge line as the TripAdvisor building. So that kind of, as you went back further, that landscaping would all get lost between the buildings, but we would have the fence to clearly isolate it and continue that protection from the visual eye from any, passerby or anyone walking around wanting to play the, hey, let's go touch that funky equipment over there, just so we don't have to deal with that.
Okay.
But yeah, Walter, if you don't have access to it,
I do, Matthew.
Okay.
I have it up now. I can share
maybe
that.
while we have them, if we could.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Walter.
Okay.
Mark, can I ask you a question while he's bringing that up?
Sure.
For Matthew, how would you get this equipment back there if you don't have that parcel to the right?
Well, the cooling module, is that what you're speaking about?
Yeah, the one that's going to require additional fencing. It appears that there's a piece of equipment near the road, and this one would be "quote unquote" behind it from the road.
Right. That would be craned into place. It's a relatively light piece of equipment. It's nothing more than a horizontal radiator with 6 fans mounted, blowing vertically to reject the heat. So what I have on my screen now is the isometric that Matthew was speaking of. So it shows the platform. It shows our fuel cell. Shows a proposed ladder position, but does not show the screening. So I can pull product samples of the screening material and share those with the board.
Okay, if you have something now.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Well, I
think the initial feedback was we wanted the feedback from whomever was to continue, again, like one of the board members was saying earlier, the visual effort that was put into that loading dock finish was to be continued. We had initially proposed a very simple railing style, protected, of course, to all fall standards and OSHA requirements and code requirements. But the initial request was actually to have it exposed so that we could, potentially show people or show off our cool new toy, if you may. But the feedback was to cover it and to encapsulate it. So we went back to Doosan and asked them to find a similar colored, metal type finish that would be able to, encapsulate the fuel cell. I know there's another. I'm sure I know I have a visual somewhere. I wish I had access to it. It was from many moons ago when we first started this concept. But yeah, so it will ultimately, the goal is that metal will will match the finish of the metal panels that sit there currently. So it doesn't look like a secondary add-on. And we didn't want it to look like a day two item. We wanted it to look like it fit in with the building.
But that's our concern, as you can see, that we don't want that either. This, the screen's a pretty important element, unfortunately. So there are two things we can really do. We can just, like, as I said earlier, we could continue you and then ask you to just submit that info at the next meeting and we could talk about it, or we can approve it with the condition that come to us and that we get a chance to look at it. But even if we do that, it's got to be the next meeting. So
I would be concerned about approving with such a big condition.
Okay.
I don't know that we've done that for other people.
We have occasionally, but more on landscaping issues than.
Yeah, I think
so.
I would be concerned about that. I would prefer, given the size and shape and location of this, that we continue the meeting for not just the landscaping reasons, but others.
Yeah, so we'd like to see, why don't we continue to our next meeting? What we'd like to see is the materials, some samples. It can be, paper product, the sales material of the screen, and a more delineation on the extent of the fencing and a description of what that fencing is. I understand you aren't going to landscape that, and I given the location, I can see why that makes sense. But it's all a little vague at this point, and relies a lot on you continuing to do the nice work that you've done. But for us to be on record and correct it, get a good record of it, I'd rather that we go ahead and do that. So you would be the first one on the agenda at the next meeting. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and if I can add another suggestion / request, a detailed or accurate plan of the ground level at the loading dock, where these columns will come down with respect to existing vegetation and landscape. And there's a post, a lamp there existing, just so we have an idea of how this fits in. This axon is very helpful, so thank you for bringing that up. But that's brought up some more questions, which this is how this process works. And then just another question. I suppose this was considered in the design, but the stair leading up to that, is that required to be there permanently? And also, could it come from the opposite direction up? So it's not coming down next to that front column, but it comes up from the back.
Oh, so yes, it is required permanently for access by our technicians for maintenance, but we could rearrange that stair. The rise and run, it's a limited use stair, so we're not looking at a 1 in 12, rise and or 712 rise and run on the stair. So we can flip that around, and quite frankly, it's a great suggestion. Yeah, because we don't need it to be out at the street.
And well, yeah, please look at that, and it might help. I think it would. And there is some landscaping there on that Google Street View that I showed that you want to take into account as well. And there's a lamp post that I think can remain. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could jump in again, Mark. I think I was more focused on what was going around the corner, and I agree that given the scale and the size of the platform, it needs some more consideration. I'm looking at a Google Street View, and sort of to the left of the axonometric, there's a building entrance, and there's a lot of thought about detailing that looks like steel members coming together. And to me, at least in the axon, this really just looks like it's a straight engineered solution. And I think it really, when you boil it down, it is a facade change. So I think we need an elevation that shows the relationship of the platform and whatever else is going on to the rest of the building. And if there hasn't been a whole lot of architectural consideration of the appearance of the steel and how columns meet the horizontal beams and platform, then I think it probably needs a little bit of thinking about the aesthetics, given the size and the scale and the proximity to the street and the impact it's going to have on the building. I agree that it's a more industrial part of the street, and there's some things that might not need to be taken as far if it was right on the front of the building, but I do think it just needs some consideration of the finish and the detailing and how that ties in with other parts of the building right in this immediate area.
All right. I appreciate that. And we can show more detailing. The screening is proposed to actually cover the horizontal steel member for that platform. So
Yeah.
what you'll
So we
see
just need to see that. Yeah.
right. So what
Yeah,
you'll
really-
see is the screening and then the four 8-inch columns.
Yeah, I think if you took just a little bit more of an architectural approach to some of the information, then we'll be able to get this resolved. Because I think this is a perfectly fine installation. You're very limited on your site to try and add this kind of thing. But I think if you can show us that it's keeping within the quality level of the rest of the building, that we should be in good shape. But at this point, we just don't quite have enough information to do that.
Understood.
Okay. All right, so we will continue you to July 6th. We will be in touch with you if that changes. You will be first on the agenda. And we should hope that we can move through the questions pretty quickly and get this all resolved. All right, so thank you.
Thanks, Walter and Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have the screen back, Walter, please.
Oh, sure.
Thank
There
you.
we go.
Okay. I think that's it for that review. Again, we will see you. You will need to contact Elisa again, get back on the agenda in case you don't want to get on the 6th and you want to take more time for some reason. You can certainly do that.
No, we are intent to
Okay.
make the 6th. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other business? We don't have minutes to approve at this point, but on our next meeting, that will be the last item on the agenda typically. All right. So motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Thank you. So we're adjourned. I'm gonna have to all in favor of adjournment. Robert Dermody,
I am in favor of adjournment.
Chad Riley,
In favor.
Nelson Hammer,
In favor.
Steve Tanner,
Please adjourn.
Len Karen,
In favor.
and the chair votes yes. So we are adjourned. Thank you. Somewhat fun. Well, not bad.
No, you did great, Mark.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair.